thumb and the finger for MCP, and we're gonna do flexion and extension, okay? So for the normal range of motion, for flexion, it's gonna say 0 to 90 degrees, and it says the same, it would be backwards. So the way that we're gonna test flexion is we're gonna start from the neutral, 0, we're gonna go to the degree that we get, and then an extension, we're gonna start from whatever degree we get, so let's say 90, and then we're gonna test it going back into 0, okay? So I want you to kind of remember that concept. Okay, so Emily, I'm gonna have her forearm in neutral on the table, okay? Your MCPs are gonna be in neutral in this position, and then we're gonna measure over the MCP, and we're gonna get her into flexion of the MCP, okay? So we're gonna hold this goni, which is the finger goni. I actually haven't used this goni like in practice. I have another little one, it's even smaller than this. But with these, you can see how it has hyperextension all the way to 30 degrees. And so the way that we would say that would be negative 30 because it's going past 0. And we would start it, if we're gonna grade like flexion or whatever, we would start it at 0. So it starts at this here, okay? So you guys can see that. This is negative 30. So people might start here not noticing. Make sure that you line it up and you get it to 0. Because at 0 degrees, this is gonna be the normal where we're gonna start, okay? So I'm going to place the fulcrum over the dorsal surface of that MCP joint. Okay, so on the back of the MCP joint, I'm going to place it because that's where I'm going to measure, okay? Then I'm going to use the stable arm to go midline of the metacarpal of that digit, okay? And then I'm going to line up the movable arm, of course, on the actual midline of the dorsal, the proximal phalanx. Okay. So what I would have her do is I would say, Emily, could you bend your fingers into your palm for me? And I would follow it that way. Okay. So at that degree,
follow the index.
you're gonna follow. I'm gonna test her index finger. I'm gonna measure her index finger. So I'm going to have her bring it in towards her palm. Okay, and I'm going to follow that motion. It's very simple when you do it. If you do it with each other, you'll see. You'll kind of learn how to do that curve. And I know that if let's say that she once again went further and this didn't move, I would adjust it. Okay. So for Emily, she has 0 to almost 90. I would say 88 degrees in that sense. Okay. Can you see that?
When Emily does the motion, is she moving all of her fingers or just that one?
She's
finger?
moved. Which one did you move? Did you move all of them? Yeah. So she moved all of them. And it's a little bit easier because it's hard to isolate one finger at a time. You probably will not get as much range of motion if you just do one at a time. Unless you have somebody that comes into the clinic and they're really stiff and you really want to see how much that finger has on its own. Okay?
I was trying to isolate.
You were trying to
I was
isolate and it
trying to
wouldn't.
isolate.
Yeah.
So I will move the rest of my phone.
You can. So, and yes.
Sorry. Why we follow the middle finger?
Why wouldn't we?
Yeah.
Why would we not?
Yes.
It's just easier for you guys to see if I do it over here on the index
So
finger.
we can follow every finger?
Oh yeah.
She's just testing this finger.
I'm just showing you. I could have done it this way too, but it's just easier to see the MCP tested if I do it on the index finger because it's at the end. Okay? She can either 8 degrees. Okay, so I'm gonna go 88 and I'm gonna try to get her to 0. Alright.
That's for extension, right?
Uh-huh. So I'll say we'll start here. No, it might be. All right, so the goniometer is going to sit the same way it did for flexion. And you're going to say, Emily, will you lift your finger out into a straight position for me? Okay, and I'm going to follow her there. So go any further? There's a little hyper. Okay, so she didn't hit quite at 0. If I was to just have her bend her fingers and say, okay, now can you straighten them out for me and not test it, and had her in this position, I could probably line her up to 0. But because I'm having her start in that flex position, I want you to read what the goniometer gets her when she extends that hand.
So
Okay?
as far as she can go. Even
As far
though
as she
it's
can go.
hyper.
You don't want her to hyperextend, and that's what I'll look for too. If she's hyperextending, I would probably ask you, do you think that's hyperextension, even though the goniometer is not reading 0? It could say maybe 5 degrees, which is fine. But I want you to do it the way that your partner's hand is going. So on Emily's, I could not say that she got to 0 degrees of extension, even though if you did the test and if you did straighten them all the way, I could easily get that to 0. Okay? So whatever it ends at is what I want you to read, that number. All right? So of course, practice and get your partner 0 degrees.
This is where we're naturally.
Yes, where you would be naturally. Okay?
Question.
Yes.
For the, if we pull that out, would we have to do flexion first,
Yes.
measure that? And then-
Yes. Did you guys hear that?
No.
Okay, so if you pulled out extension, MCP extension, I would want you to measure the flexion first to get her in that position so that you know where your end range is, and then go to 0. Okay? Go into extension. So for the next one, be hyperextension, and we're not testing the thumb, okay? So we're gonna test the finger with this as well, and the fulcrum's gonna sit over the same area as it did for flexion and extension. With MCP hyperextension, you're gonna start at 0, but then you're going to read how far she can hyperextend her finger into that position. Okay? It's a little strange, but I was thinking, why would we test that? Like, why would that occur? You know? And a lot of times, like, I guess if you have that fall on the outstretched hand and the finger, let's say, snapped back and then healed incorrectly, so the doctor might want to know how much motion he has to get to neutral, like how much limitations is he going to have now that he can't grip or bring that finger back. So the thumb, that's not necessarily the same. Usually that's going to be from like an ulnar collateral like tear.
30.
So with the digit and 0, we're going to do the fulcrum, same thing, at the base of that MCP joint, and you're going to have the movement arm on the dorsal of that proximal phalanx. I'm going to say, hey Emily, can you extend your your finger back towards, like, you're going to touch the back of your forearm for me? And then at that angle right there. So she has negative 20 degrees. Okay? It's negative 20. I don't know, the book says 0 to 30 degrees, but you're going past 0. So it would be a negative number. Okay? You would say 0 to negative 30 degrees. Negative 30 degrees of hyperextension. Okay?
And that's for
Yes. No. And this test also is not necessarily the most practical thing, because you can see if somebody's hyperextended, you know, and your goal would be to get them to 0.
Is that for MCP? Is that for the MCP?
Yes.
MCP,
Okay.
hyperextension.
Okay.
All right, so